Welcome back to the Two Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined by Charlie Johnson. I'm really excited about this episode. He is the world's #1 online fitness coach. And so, Charlie, if you wouldn't mind kind of telling people what it is that you do and how you help or add value to what they have going on, that'd be great.
So brief backstory on myself. I was a former failed personal trainer, became a real estate agent. I then saw what's happening with social media. I then set up an online fitness business as like a Gary Vee type of side hustle. My side hustle then replaced my main hustle. I left a 9 to 5, set one of the biggest online fitness businesses in the UK. I moved to Dubai in 2021, and I then scaled a second business, which is 7-figure scaling systems, where we help online trainers, personal trainers get time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom using the exact systems I built my own fitness business. I'm incredibly passionate about helping people maximize their potential, because I think one of the things that I now have a huge amount of urgency in life is that I felt I started too late. I'm 35 now, and we didn't probably have the opportunities I had when I'm younger. So I'm very passionate about helping people realize they're paying a lot of ignorance tax with what they don't know, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. We were just talking before we jumped online. You're in Vegas to get an award. You want to talk about that, and then how you what your funnel was, or what your business was that you're winning that award for?
So I'm here to get the Two Comma Club X award. And I think what's cool about that is I remember seeing Tanner Chichester with a BMW i8 with the Comma Club Awards and stuff like that, and I was like, I want that. And that was like a vision in my head, maybe like 5 years ago, and I took that into a reality. And I think for me, that's a very much the importance of visualization. If you understand what you want, and then you go and chase a thing. And I think one of the things I see why a lot of people struggle is they don't know what they want or why. In terms of the funnels that have allowed me to do that, we've used a couple of different strategies. The predominant one has been, say, in our fitness business, DM ads into call booking funnels. And we really blew up my fitness business in COVID in 2020, when everyone crapped their pants and no one wanted to run ads, and then ads became really cheap. So I was like, okay, let's just scale this. And there was something called Direct Heroes back then, before ManyChat. It was like an autoresponder. So I was getting leads for like $1 and just hammering ads in with an autoresponder. So we were crushing. So that's the predominant thing we scaled our fitness business with, DM ads to a call booking funnel. We now transition that very much to using a boosted reels approach to a call booking funnel. And then on our B2B offer, we heavily use a lead magnet funnel for something called our 5C course, which is sick in terms of how to run ads and how to create content. And then we dial the prospects coming through. So we do about 2,000 outbound calls a day, which is really something we're looking to scale up. And as we're scaling this, we're seeing the importance in terms of like data tracking and really knowing your numbers, so that you can be aggressive with where to allocate your resource. Because I think one of the things more CEOs, business owners need to think of like, is like an investor, because it's like, where are you putting the resources in your business most effectively, so you can grow and really get what you want.
That's awesome. I love that. So, in terms of it sounds like your path of getting discovered online, a lot of it is a combination of paid ads, but then also like creating your own content and promoting that via the boosted reels. So, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing, like, what is the strategy that you use for that content, and how you position yourself online to reach the people you're trying to help out?
I think the most important thing is the fitness industry in particular. I think pretty much all industries are becoming very copycat in a lot of respects. But what I think is important is that people add their own unique flair into what they do. So I think if you are congruent with your audience and what you do, it then becomes very easy. So for me, um, I am my audience. I am a successful online fitness trainer, so I help successful online fitness trainers. So I know the pain points, the problems, I know how to speak to them. I know what they want. I know how to trigger them. I know all the emotional roller coasters of the business they're going to go through. So I think the more you talk about like giving people value, but then also I think digging into the emotional pain points that people will resonate with. So like, for example, that business isn't like linear growth, right? We all know that. Like we all, like everyone tells you it's gonna like, oh, you build MMR and it'll just build over time. Like it's always gonna be like peaks and troughs, and it's like a roller coaster. And I think the more experience you become in business, the better you can get to like handle that. So your direct mood and value of your life isn't dependent on how many people you close that day. Because like I found that before, that our sales team closes 10 people in a row, and I'm like, I feel like God reincarnated. And then the next day they don't close anyone. I feel like I want to jump off the balcony. So I think the more you can try and share some of those experiences and add some humor to it, the more people will relate and be like, I like this guy, but he also gives me a lot of value as well.
Yeah. I like it. I think being real in business, you got to be real because there are ups and downs, and having that emotional regularly. What made you, just if you don't mind backing up a little bit in your story, I found it fascinating. Obviously, a lot of people do. They start out in the corporate world, they start out doing some kind of business, and they jump both feet into what they're doing now. And that's when they get success. What was kind of the hinge point for you to jump in both feet to get in the space, online space, and really commit to that, and things take off for you?
I think for me, I realized I was trapped, and I think that might
Mm.
resonate with a lot with the audience because
Yeah. Yeah.
I had quote unquote the perfect life. I made $100,000 a year, had an okay house, mortgage, wife, all the dream that the society sells you, right? But I realized I wanted more, but I could also never have freedom with what I was doing. And for me, it was always I wanted time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. I wanted to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. And I realized if I worked for a corporation, that's never going to happen. I'm going to have to dance to their tune. And that's where I saw the opportunity of what was happening online of like, okay, cool. Like this is my escape vehicle of how I can get out of this position. And if I don't take this jump now, I never will. And I think about this a lot. If I'm radically transparent, I procrastinated on that leap of leaving my full-time job for way too long, probably about 6 to 9 months. Why? I was in the most dangerous position people are in their lives, and they're probably listening to this right now, the comfort zone. I had a salary job. I was making $100,000 a year. I was making $20,000 a month part time as an online coach. I was loving life. It was easy, but I knew I could do more, and I knew like what if, and I took that leap. I remember leaving my job 25th of February 2019, and as I worked in real estate, 50% of your salary was commission based, right? So if you gave your notice in, you got paid half of the month. I was like, I'm not doing that. So the day I got paid, I went in and just got myself, I was like, I'm leaving. I went home. I managed like a branch, and my area manager called me. He's like, you can't just leave, you have to come back. And I was like, no, I don't. And for me, that was the moment I realized I
You have
could
the
do
freedom.
whatever I want, whenever I want. I have freedom, but I just have to work and rely on myself and fucking put your nose to the grind and do what it takes. And then you never have to dance to anyone else's tune again. And for me, that was like my Independence Day that really was like the inflection point for me really changing my life. And I think I look back now with a lot of pride because it took a lot of courage to do that because a lot of people thought I was insane. Particularly back in 2019, this was less of a thing. And I think people need to think, what if it works rather than what if it doesn't? Because if it didn't work, I'd get another job in real estate. I was good at what I did. It'd be easy. But if it did work, I get to live the life of my dreams. And the latter happened, which I'm fortunate for. And people need to think more like that.
Yeah, I love that. It really goes to show how, like, when you take that leap of faith, you highlighted at the end there that if it works out, like, you're in a great position. And worst case scenario, you just go back to work, right? It's like you're not really doing yourself any service by being afraid of taking that leap, but rather just take it, see what happens, and then worst case scenario, you're back where you were already. So that's awesome. What would you say has been some of the experiences that you've had when it comes to helping some of the coaches that you're coaching take that leap into that full time?
I think the biggest thing that we crave as entrepreneurs and we are afraid of is uncertainty. So it's a leap into the unvoid. Is like, oh, I've had a slow week for sales. No one's ever going to buy my thing again. Like the whole thing's falling apart. Things coming crumbling down. I think me having a lot of experience in the industry and also working with some of the biggest coaches in the world, like we've helped 7 coaches hit the first $100,000 months in the last 4 months in fitness, which is pretty wild. And like, I'll give it a good example. One of them is a guy called Dave Kennedy. This isn't mental. I would never believe I was going to say this. So a year ago, he was making 15,000 euros a month. And then a year later, he's making 150,000 euros a month. He lives in rural Ireland. His fitness business helps farmers get in shape. He specifically just coaches farmers and the farming community,
Wow.
um, which shows like how big this market can be when you focus on something so specific. And I think the biggest gift I have helping people is giving people certainty and conviction so they can go and do the thing. Because we're all the same, right? Like the biggest reason we don't achieve the things we want is we get in our own way and it's a lack of conviction to do the thing. Where someone's like, I've done this works, you just need to do X, Y, Z. It then becomes very easy. And I think it's that uncertainty in the back of people's head, which makes them apprehensive to do the thing. And if you can give someone conviction and certainty, they do it, they get a little bit of momentum, which then gives them success, and then success gives them a bit more momentum, and it's that type of loop that gives them confidence to succeed.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the things you talk about certainty, or having certainty, is to see you're a normal person. You didn't grow up. I mean, I don't know your background, but you probably didn't grow up in a multi-million dollar family and have all these things given to you. And I think it's pretty easy to show, hey, this is where I came from. This is where I'm at. What's kind of your backstory? How'd you grow up as a kid? I'm really fascinated. You got a lot of energy. I see that. What kind of is your drive? Where'd that come from? So as a kid.
If you want to save time on watching all the episodes, but still get all the gold nuggets that we find from interviewing these 7, 8, and 9 figure entrepreneurs, then you can get all of that inside of the 2 Comma Club newsletter. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com and subscribe.
It's interesting. So, and I don't know if this resonates to the audience, and this is a bit of a weird one to say. The biggest thing I probably discovered the last 3 years, I've had am I allowed to swear a little bit, like tiny bit?
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
Please.
I've had a huge amount of like fuck you drive, and I think one of the reasons for that is to prove a point, but also like a big thing was making my father proud of me, and I think that's one of the things as men we really strive for. We don't psychologically understand that, and every one of my friends who's a very high level entrepreneur has maybe a slightly strange relationship with their father, where they're seeking approval. And I can give some context to this. I remember like 2 years ago, my dad like praised me for like the first time in a long time, and he said, it's amazing what you've achieved, but it's cost you a lot. And I was like, whoa, that's deep. Which took me back. And I think for me, I grew up in an upper middle class background. My dad had his own business. He did reasonably well. But I lived on my own since I was 18. I did my own things since I was 18. And for me, it was really to like stand a point of like, I can do this on my own back and I don't need anyone else to help me. And I think I've always had that drive. And I think the frustration I had when I worked in real estate is I had so much energy and dynamism. I wanted to go and do things, but I just didn't know what. I didn't have the vehicle. And as soon as I found the vehicle,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm all in. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. And I think 3 questions people should ask themselves: what do you want? Like, what do you want in life? What do you want to do? Number 2 is like, how badly do you want it? Like, how do you really want this thing? And then thirdly is like, how much are you willing to suffer to get it? Because the more success you have, the more it's going to take from you to get the thing. And I think as long as you understand the answers to those 3 questions, and the quicker you can understand that, the easier it gets to where you want to be. And I think the biggest thing I've learned from a business perspective is, yes, you need to learn the skills, but at a certain point, it's a mindset game of being able to manage your own emotions and make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that anymore. There was another individual we had really early on when this podcast first started, Mark Stern, and he talked about how like once you hit a certain level of like having all the pieces connected, at that point it's just a matter of mindset, right? Like when you go from 7 to 8, it's probably just mindset holding you back. Like who do you have to be capable of doing 10 million rather than 1 million a year and things of that nature. And so, yeah, I resonate with that. So talking about that, one of the big things around mindset that we've noticed through this podcast is how much your environment shapes your mindset. And so I don't know if you have any tidbits or things that you can share around how it is that you curate your environment to be in the right mindset. That'd be awesome.
I would say you have to be very ruthless with your time, attention, and what you're exposed to. So I'm a big believer in something called the law of exposure. Like once you're exposed to something, you can't be unexposed. So like once you're in a room with someone who crushes it, you're like, holy shit. And I'll give an example. I got invited to an event a couple of weeks ago with a guy who's actually been on my podcast recently. I won't say his name. And he said to me, I realized I couldn't afford my private jet when I had $275 million cash in my bank account. I was like, whoa. I've never heard someone talk so blasé about that amount of money. And that like broke a limited belief for me. So it's like the law of exposure thing, right? And I think the reason I now have those type of conversations is I had a very difficult period at the start of 2022 where I actually ended up leaving the UK and getting divorced from my 10-year relationship because I realized I'd outgrown the person I was with, and also that she hadn't signed up for who I became, which was fair. I wanted to go to move to Dubai. She wanted to stay in a small town in the UK. I knew I wanted to go and do big things and travel loads and do X, Y, Z. So I had to make that difficult decision. I think that's also where a lot of people are afraid to take that leap. But that was another, probably the second biggest inflection point in my life from leaving my job was 6th of January 2022. I basically split from my partner. 7th of January, had to give away all my personal possessions, my house, all that type of stuff in the UK. And then it gets even better. The 8th of January, I was sitting in the Hilton Hotel in Kingston in London, about to talk on a podcast. My Instagram account gets disabled. I was like, which was like 80, 90% of my revenue at the time. So it's like, my personal life's messed up. My business is not fucked. I'm like, this is character building. It's going to make a good story. So, um, but what that taught me from that horrendous experience was that everything happens to you for a reason. So I got very good at running paid ads because for those 3 weeks I didn't have an Instagram account. I had to find another way to book us 40, 50 sales calls a day. So whenever you're going through difficult times, it makes you have to be creative and find another way. And I think that was one of the big things that then took me to Dubai and then took me with a very strong mindset in terms of, okay, you're willing to sacrifice all these other things that people want because you want more. So look, then I wouldn't cut corners and doing what it takes. And I think then me moving into that type of environment where I see huge amounts of abundance, success. I speak with very successful people all the time from different industries. It just lights your brain on fire to like what's truly possible and how much bigger you can play. And like it makes you realize this is just a big video game and it's just fun at a certain point rather than like taking it too serious and like having to stress too much. I think the more you can try and gamify the process of business and life, the more you'll enjoy it and the more you'll thrive.
Yeah, like something you touched on there. I don't know if you said the same verbiage was abundant. Having that abundant mindset, just seeing. I'm in real estate. I see real estate everywhere, the options and the potential, and like you said, you just see opportunities everywhere once you have that abundant mindset and like that law of exposure. I'm really big into that as well. And when you're exposed to something, you can't unsee it. So look at that. Like obviously, I think based on what you're saying, obviously, I'm sure people are finding you, connecting with you. They see something different in you. How are you getting discovered? How are folks coming to you? How are you able to help people? Like, how are you niching down to find the folks that you're finding?
Uh, a couple of different ways. The first one I'd actually say is the unscalable. So I would say I try and think about building an online business offline. So we do three really big mastermind events a year. We have one in mid-March, which is like a 120-foot super yacht. We do business workshops every single month. So I do a lot of stuff in person because a bit like the law of exposure, when you physically see someone in person, you're like,
Yeah,
it's a different vibe. They can touch and feel you. So I'm very big into that. Um, Second thing is we make a astronomical amount of content. So like I basically building a media team around me, and this is where I think of like this is the long-term player branding. We have 3 YouTube videos go out a week, 3 podcasts go out a week. We make 3, 4 Instagram reels a day. I've also got 3, 4 Instagram accounts. We do LinkedIn, email every day. We do like everything. So um, it's an attention society. So the more attention and value you can give, the more you can grow. And then on top of that, we do a lot in terms of paid traffic, but much more in terms of like cold and giving value to like free courses to then try and pull people into our ecosystem. So I think about it like a spider web effect. Our organic content gives sick and loads of value. And then we run cold stuff out to try and pull people into that, not even really to try and convert them, but knowing they'll convert over time. So that's our main strategy. And then the third thing really is just getting kick-ass client results because same as fitness, right? Like if you get someone in great shape, their friends are like, what happened to you? I worked with this guy. It's like, okay, who is this guy? Same thing for us. Is like we take a farmer from making 15 grand a month to 150. Everyone's like, well, how did you do this? It's like Charlie helped me. All the friends sign up, and that's very much how we've grown a lot. It's just from word of mouth because when you're the person who's done the thing and then you teach the thing at the highest level, you then become the person of authority. And I think that's also the way people need to think is that you need to understand the whole aspect of what you do and be able to teach it to a high level, but also be able to do it yourself.
That's awesome. I love it. So, breaking back into your story a little bit more about how it is that you ended up coming across this business and stuff. I know previously you mentioned Tanner Chittister. I'm curious to know, did you
Yeah.
by chance happen to be exposed to this world of online business through him, or were there other ways that you came across it?
Uh, so I was fortunate or fate put me in place where the real estate agents I worked in was next to like there was a bodybuilding gym like fitness gym like 10 minutes away that had a couple of like fitness influencers in there. And this was like 2016, 2017. So I sort of saw what was going on and I was like, I could do that. And I was like, I'm way better at marketing and sales than these guys. These guys are just like jacked and like good at making content. So I was like, let's give this a whirl. And I think it's that I first started selling workout Word document PDFs for like £40, $40. And I look back now, and it was terrible. But the reality is that gave me the confidence and the proof of concept of, okay, someone's willing to buy my stuff.
yeah.
I can probably do this. And then one thing just escalated from there. I think the big thing that then has allowed me to keep growing is constant reinvestment in myself. So I've spent $400,000, $500,000 in personal education, self-development, mentorships, masterminds. Like one of the reasons I'm here at the moment in Vegas is I've signed up to work with acquisition.com and Hormozy's business with some stuff. So I think the big thing I realized very quickly was the biggest thing you're letting yourself down with is the ignorance tax of what you don't know. So I'm on a mission to try and find the person who's done the thing I want to do and collapse that time horizon down, because then I can get to where I want to be quicker and have less pain in the process. Because it's not necessarily even you doing the right thing, but it's you doing the wrong thing for 6 months can set you back 2 years. And I think that's where people need to reframe that someone could say one thing to you that can make you millions. Can give you an example that I'm setting up a software company. And actually, the guy who said he had a stupid amount of money in his bank account said one line to me before our podcast that will save me a fortune. I was like, that's so smart. And that's the thing of like, when you know the right people and you have the right connections, you can ask like one or two questions here or there. You get to where you want to be very quickly. And I think that's also where a good friend of mine now from my podcast is a guy called Daniel Priestley. Not sure if you've heard of him, but he talks about becoming like key person of influence. If you can make yourself as a person of influence in an industry, you get connected with other people who are doing high level stuff and you just learn off each other.
No, I agree with that 100%. One of the things you said is you getting involved, these guys doing things in the gym and Pete, the Word document. I think you got to start, though. I think it's where most people have that kind of bridge, initially that start. And like you said, who's already doing it? Like you said, finding people who are already doing it. And either A, you figure it out, which is who, which takes a lot of energy, or how, I'm sorry, or who, you somebody's already done it, paying for it. Who's been some people in your life that kind of got you to that next level or kind of gave you some ways to help you grow that you've been able to implement?
I'd say one of the biggest impacts is a good friend of mine called Frank Den Blanken. So Frank has one of the biggest fitness businesses in the world. And I remember I thought I was like Billy Big Shit at the time, making like 30 grand a month. I went to an event in Tampa, I think it was, in Florida, from the UK. And I met Frank and I was like, oh, so what do you do? And I was like, oh, yeah, I make like 30 grand. And it's like, what do you do? And he's like 1.5 million. And I was like, fuck. It's like, okay, cool. And this is where like the law of exposure thing again, of like your ego goes from here to like down here, because you can be like the big guy in your town who crushes it, but then in like the world, no one cares. And I think that's also for me one of the things in Dubai is like, it's interesting is you get humbled very quickly. Um, I do reasonably well, but I'm a minnow compared to other people there. Like I got invited to go and do someone who owns a timeshare business. Uh, he's looking to build a hotel in Saudi Arabia. Who's a billionaire who lives on the Palm. He wanted some advice on marketing, so I went to his house on the Palm, and I was like, "There's levels," and I think that's where, for me, I think a few key pivotal people like Frank, they've helped me a lot from the skills perspective. But I think the big thing actually was really like opening my eyes to realize, okay, this is what's possible. And I think from that experience I had is why I've been very passionate about creating that environment I wanted when I was younger, where we have all these coaches who are doing big numbers. Because when you see someone else is doing it and actually meet that person in the flesh, you're like, well, he's just a human being. So like, if he can make 200K a month, like, why can't I do
Yeah,
it? You
yeah,
then realize it's possible, right? So it gives you hope. It's the same as Roger Bannister with the 4 minute mile. Like, no one could run 4 minute mile. And then within 6 months, like 24, 25 people did it because they realized it could be done.
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. It's really cool that you've taken a leap of faith to move to Dubai and everything, and I'm really curious to know. I've seen a lot of people do that. I personally have not, but I am interested in at least visiting it one day soon. And I see that a lot of people are moving there, and they talk about the wealth that's in that space and the individuals that are there that are just like you said, next level, right? And so I'm really curious to know how making that move and changing your environment to being in Dubai has had an influence on you so far during the time period you've been there.
I would say Dubai is the best place in the world to live if you're an entrepreneur. Um, and the reason I say that is a couple of reasons. So, one, if we look at like generally the game of business is to build wealth, the biggest cost you can have in your life is tax. If you move to Dubai, or at least as a British citizen, you don't pay any tax. If I make $1 million, I take home $1 million. If I live in the UK, I make $1 million, I take home 250,000. So I forex my income just moving there essentially if I make a million, which is insane. And then the other thing is the speed and access to the smartest and best people in the world, and also the environment where everyone is like an expat. So everyone's moved there. Everyone wants to help each other. Everyone's new in town, and it's like the best of the best of the best coming from Europe, Asia, Australia. There's loads of people from the US, North America coming now as well. And the good thing is, it's actually a small city. Everywhere's like half an hour away, so it's very easy to connect with people who are on the same wavelength and also collaborate. Because I think if anyone's looking to build an audience to get traffic, that's one of the quickest ways to do it is by collaborating with others. And I think when I was in the UK, I lived just outside of London. But if I'm going to go and collaborate with someone in London, it's take me 3 hours to get there. Whereas now it's like I have a couple of people live in my building who have got like massive followings who I collaborate with. I just go up the elevator. So it's like that's the difference, I think, is the speed and the access. And also I'd say, even from a lifestyle perspective, when I live there, I'm either working or I'm enjoying myself. I have a That sounds like a housekeeper, my car's clean for me, like food's delivered. I don't do anything other than work or enjoy myself. And I think the more you can realize what the value of your time is, you can then really pour into your business full bore. And I'm either working or I'm almost like trying to recover from work, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that we talk about the law of attraction. I do think, like anything, my life I ran as a younger kid. I got around better runners. I became better. I did jujitsu. I got my butt kicked, but I got around really good people who were good at it, and I became better being around them. Same thing in business. With you, look at a team. What are you doing personally? Like, a lot of people have a huge team that build out a huge process. Some people like to keep it super lean. I'm just interested, behind the scenes, look at your company. What are you guys doing, and what works for you guys right now?
So I'm a big believer in manpower and team to a certain degree, but I would say I've made a lot of mistakes about the last 2, 3 years. So we had a there's a difference between bodies and brains, as well. Explain it. So we had probably 50 plus members of staff at one point. We now have 32 members of staff. We make the same revenue. Our expenses are a lot less because we have better people who are more efficient at doing the thing. And I think for me, I'd say one of the things I found throughout my career is that people will get you to a certain level and then you're going to need better people. So whether it's phone closers, setters, tech people, whatever. And when you're at the beginning, if you've got a business that makes 20, 30K a month, you can't get a world-class phone closer because you can't pay them enough to do it. And I think that's just an understanding of, okay, cool, you're going to have to bring people in the best you can find. You just try and train them a lot to get them better. And I think it's just paying attention in terms of what the game is you're trying to play. So like our media team's quite big, which is why we have a lot of staff. Like I said, we make a lot of content because I'm playing the long-term game of trying to build my brand up as much as I can because I know the impact that's going to have for me in 5 years' time, whether I'm doing what I do now or I do something else. And I try and think about it like Gary Vee talks about. It's like you look at the Death Star media type of thing, like from Star Wars, right? You can just point it at whatever you want and then off you go. So I think if you try and have a long-term vision of what you want to do, you can then make the right steps and try and make the high leverage moves. And then you build the teams and systems around that, which is very much what we've been working towards. And I say the biggest advice I could give to anyone is hire slower than you think when you're interviewing and hiring people, because at the beginning you just want to you throw bums on seats, but you realize it causes more problems than good, and it's more of a headache to get those people out or deal with the ramifications of what they've caused. um, which is why I like the expression for business is slow is smooth, but smooth is fast.
I love that. Yeah, so talking about hiring, like, I the other common thing that I hear all the time is the idea of, like, hiring slow and firing fast. And so what are some of the processes and procedures that you do in terms of hiring to, uh, make sure that these candidates are the right candidates to, fill the seats?
I can give a really good example of the worst hiring mistake I ever made that cost me $80,000. So I wasn't part of a mentorship where they used to like help place you with like a tech integrator, whatever it was, right? So like I got introduced to this guy. I thought he was like the nuts. I thought he was like the mustard. He used to work as like a engineer on a naval submarine, all this type of stuff. I was like, this guy's sick. So I told my whole team how great this guy was. So then what do they believe when they interview him? That he's insane because Charlie said he's insane. So the worst thing you can ever do is interview like multiple people interviewing and give feedback like beforehand. The second thing I then did is didn't question him in terms of how much he wanted from a salary, which was way too much. Second month in, he said like, oh, I actually need my team in on this as well. So we need more manpower people. So I was like, we were just like aggressively trying to scale at the time because it was that period when I'd gotten divorced, moved to Dubai. I was like on the fucking warpath. And I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. So then we ended up spending like 80 grand in like 3 months. And then I basically replaced him with a VA who'd for like $5 an hour. And I was like, well, that was interesting. We built a load of shit we didn't need that was complicated. And I think that was an expensive lesson. And I think that now is a good lesson that I've learned to not do that again, but also to teach other people not to do the same thing. Because pain is knowledge really fast. When you really cock something up like that, you realize the impact that has on you long term.
I agree. I've done the same thing. I can't say I spent 80 grand, but I've definitely done that before. I'm like, man, what did I do? Um, One of the things you hit on, which I love, you talk about being in Dubai and either working or just enjoying your time is so precious. I agree. And one of the things Jill and I talk about is who, not how. You know, who can do this for you versus you doing it. If you ask yourself, obviously, how you're doing it. So I love that. So looking at that, what is some of your unique abilities and what are you really like? I need to stay in my lane here. I'm do really well. And then obviously you got a team and what are you kind of getting out? So for you in particular, superpower, unique ability, how would you describe yourself in one or two key areas?
I would say it's vision and gut instinct of where the market's going and what will work, and like unique marketing ideas. So, like even for example, the mastermind we're doing in March, we've hired a super yacht, which is like 120 foot, it's massive. We'll have 100 of the biggest fitness trainers in the world. What are they all going to be doing? Posting this all over social media, tagging me. So I've got 100 people with big social media accounts, like blowing up social media about how great I am, how great our event is, showing this lifestyle of the super yacht. I was like,
Yeah,
this is going to
yeah,
print money, right? It's genius. So that would be an example in terms of like from a marketing perspective, I think differently than a lot of other people. I don't think what will it cost. I think what will the cause be on the back end, because what's the impressions of 50 million people's followers on my account? Probably quite a lot. And then like compared to our ticket price of what we sell for. And I'd say that I'm my biggest superpower outside of that is I'm very coachable. So I'm good at learning skills, but also becomes a weakness because I can do everything in the business, which then means that I sometimes want to try and do everything. So
yeah,
what
yeah,
I try and focus on doing now is like the high leverage things, which is going to be like the front end. And then also, say, for example, training our sales teams, setting teams, because if I pour into them and make them better at sales, that's way more effective than me taking sales calls, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree any more on that. It's all about having that leverage, right, and utilizing other
Mm.
people to help you do all those systems and things. I really like that idea of the mastermind group that you're pulling together there. Is this your first time doing something at that scale, or have you done events like that before?
We've done that. We've done a lot, and actually, this is one of the things that really blew our business up. So we do three a year. We have about 120 trainers there. So we've done them in Vegas. We do two a year in Dubai, Marbella, like all over the place. And I think the big thing, I personally really enjoy it anyway, but the big thing is the community aspect, because
yeah,
the more society is going online, like a bit like I said earlier, right? You can build your online business offline. So like people meet me in person and say, oh, like Charlie's not as like hard up and like straight laced. I think he is. He's actually quite funny and like messes around a bit. I think that has a huge impact on people's belief of you, but also the community of the other clients you have come, people just want to be a part of something. Human beings are like tribal creatures. We aren't supposed to be like isolated. And we live in an isolated society, particularly if you're an entrepreneur, you work online. If you've only
yeah.
got you and your business, it's lonely, which is why being part of a community is a huge thing. And I actually also think having a team is a huge thing. So I think that is really what I like to build is like a community where people learn, but also most importantly, they have fun. Because if people have fun and
Yeah.
they enjoy the thing, it creates positive memories, and then they'll want to keep being involved.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. The way you feel about things. I think one of the major things I've heard is people don't remember what you said to them. It's they remember how you made them feel, and so that's really important. Sorry to cut you off there, Chris. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. You're good. Something you really hit on, Charlie. I appreciate, man. I appreciate all that rapid fire questions. You're just banging away. I appreciate that. One of the things I'm really wrestling with currently is I think I'm coachable as well. And coaches said, "Hey, hire more, get people, get things off your plate." For me, I'm fine. Things are getting done, which I'm great, but I'm not always the one to do it. I don't even know they're getting done. I know they're getting done, but I don't know how they're getting done. How did you kind of like getting a lot of your stuff off your plate? How has that transition been for you as you obviously come in? You're just focusing on your lane, staying in your area with the media and with the coaching and with the mastermind groups, and the rest of the stuff's getting done. How are you managing that or asset managing that now for your company, if you don't mind me asking?
So the biggest thing I find from a feedback loop perspective is, and actually I take credit from this from a guy called Paul Daly. So Paul used to be CEO for Eman Ghazi. So basically what we do is we get everyone to send me, everyone reports to their manager with an end of day Loom video. So like exactly what they've done today, what they need help with, and what their big focus is for tomorrow. And then that means for me that I have four or five people who send me a Loom video of what they're doing, what they need help with, and what's going on. I actually just watch those when I'm at the gym, like warming up or afterwards for like 15, 20 minutes, can give feedback in Slack, and then it saves me a load of meetings. So that's how I have quick feedback loops of what's going on. Alongside this, having some other figures come through every day of like how many calls, like for our type of business, the leading indicator is how many calls are booked. So we look at that, and then obviously revenue and sales. So those are the key things that I look at, and that's the most effective way to have people feedback, because if someone's having to do a video loom every day, there's nowhere for them to hide. Like they can hide in a message, but if they're trying to send a 3-minute video and they've not done anything that day, they're going to get caught up pretty quickly. So that's a very effective strategy that we've utilized probably for about the last 12 months.
Nice.
Good.
So
That's
looking
good.
at that, you're touching on a lot of like amazing KPIs and things. Like what are some KPIs that you recommend that coaches in your space pay attention to so that way they can really have an understanding of what's happening from an overview perspective of their business, and making sure that they're moving in the right direction?
Um, the big things would, it obviously depends on the size of the business, is how many calls you're booking every day. The second thing would be what your monthly churn rate is, closing rate, show rate, cash collected per sales call. And then the predominant way I find in fitness that you get the best leads and sales if you're using more organic is going to be doing outbound messaging. So on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, we do a lot on LinkedIn as well, is how many outbound messages you're actually sending every day, how many follow-up messages you're sending. Like our highest performing clients, like I mentioned, the farmer guy there, we've got a lady called Aaliyah, makes $230,000 a month, who's 24, who also lives in Dubai. They all do like 1,500 to 2,000 follow-up messages a day. So it's a lot of following up. I think this is where I can look at someone's business straight away and be like, that's the problem because you're not doing X, Y, Z. And most people know what the problem is, but they just don't want to go and spend the time fixing it. And how have I done that? I'll try and fix operations and fulfillment issues by doing more marketing because I like that. Whereas reality, where we actually need to go and fix the problem of what we want. And to give a really good example of this, Alex Samosi said to me 2 days ago, I was like, our bottleneck is lead gen. So I was like, do I scale my organic? Do I focus on scaling my paid ads? And if it's paid ads, what strategy? And we went through some numbers, and he was like, you don't need to do either of these. You just need to fix your churn rate and your customer retention. You fix that, you print money. I was like, okay, but that's the thing I don't want to deal with. I think as entrepreneurs, we often like brush under the carpet the thing that's probably a little bit more difficult or a bit more boring, rather than like, oh, I set up a new ad campaign, it's made a sale today, sick.
I appreciate you've been dropping a lot of good knowledge here. I guess one of my big things is I've heard you say a lot of things. You touched on some things you're doing this year. What's your guys' one big goal for the company that you're pushing forward with your team that you guys are trying to accomplish this year, if you don't mind me asking?
So the biggest thing we're focusing on right now is improving our back end product so it's so good no one ever wants to leave. And I actually had a call ironically with the farmer guy before this earlier on, and he said to me, anyone who leaves your program is like clinically insane because you have everything you need. The reason they leave is mindset issues, that they don't do the thing and they don't believe. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's the problem. The thing I need to fix is how do I get people to snap their head into gear at the start so they actually do the thing, which is the big thing we need to focus on fixing. Alongside, we want to try and get more cold traffic to convert via what's called a DSL. So instead of a VSL, we're using like a slide deck. So if we can try and get that to convert, we can scale that, which we actually had to sell from that today. We can get that to convert. We can scale that a lot more than having to have 20 outbound phone dialers, which is a more labor intensive and more complicated rather than just like up the ad spend.
No, that's awesome. I love that. So I think you've dropped a ton of value today. This has been an amazing episode. Where is it that people can reach out to you or get involved in the things that you have going on?
The best place to connect would be if you connect to me at Charlie Johnson Fitness on Instagram, or I would check out our YouTube channel, which is Charlie Johnson Scaling Systems. I literally just give everything away we do for free on there. So it's like, if anyone wants to scale online business, there's a ton of stuff of value in there that will help you grow.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Man, appreciate your time today, Charlie.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you so
Big thanks,
much.
guys.